Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes of all teen ages. Thank you so much for stopping by. As most of you know, this is going to be the grand finale of MLP month. Thank you to everybody who stuck by and watched all of these videos. I know there were a few really hardcore fans of this series, and I thank you for that. And there are a few people who don't really like the MLP card game that stuck with me anyways, and to all of you, thank you so much. Now, you might be wondering what I'm doing for the very last MLP month video. Well, you see, at the beginning of the month, I got issued a challenge to make a deck using a specific set of cards. The challenge came in the fact that not only is it something that just conventionally would never work ever, but also is something that I've always said is impossible. Not necessarily with just those cards, but you'll get it in just a second. The person who issued this challenge didn't give me explicit permission to go and to give their name out, so I'm not going to, just in case it's something that's going to bother them and people are going to start messaging them, so I'm not going to, but the message was pretty much something like this. Dear Kudou, you seem to be considered the most popular MLP CCG pony tuber. While you claim that the game is balanced enough to pull off just about any deck, I have one deck idea that even you probably won't be able to pull off. Considering that the MLP card game is a part of your channel, you probably know that Counterlot Knights has come out and each of the colors have gotten an element card. In the show, all of the elements come together to create the element of harmony, and one would assume they're supposed to work together. However, in the card game, it seems that it's almost impossible to make them work together. Do you think you're skilled enough to prove that it's possible to make these 6 cards work together in a deck, or is that beyond even you? I'm going to be honest with you folks, this was probably the most difficult deck in any card game I've ever tried to pull off. Obviously, I couldn't turn down such a request. I mean, come on, my popularity is at stake here. It took me about 17 tries to get a deck that actually had some sort of win record together. But after a while, playtesting and fooling around with it, I actually got a deck that could keep roughly a 52% win record going. That's not super good, and the deck itself isn't super good, but you know what? I tried, and I truly believe that this is probably going to be my best attempt at creating this deck. While I can't promise that the deck will ever be tournament worthy, I do have to say that the deck is a lot of fun to play, so if you happen to be somebody who plays on TradeCardsOnline.com or something like that, maybe you should give this deck a quick shot. It's very unique, it's very fun to play, and it's interesting every time you play it because of just how different the strategies are. So enough fooling around, let's get to the deck list. This is Kudou's My Little Pony, Friendship is Ridiculous. As always, if you're just here to net deck the deck list, I don't recommend it. This deck is awful. But if you want it that badly, then all I ask is that you leave me a like on your way out. For the rest of us, keep in mind, this was really hard for me because I hate the idea of a 6-color deck. It goes against every sensible thing that I've learned and studied and taught about this card game. But at the same time, that's also what makes it so interesting and fascinating to me. The list itself is actually pretty explanatory, but we're gonna go on and talk about the cards anyway. The main I'm going to run for this deck is Twilight Sparkle Gallagreeder, who you will remember from my Pinky Sparkle Surprise Core. Honestly, her boosted side doesn't help us out at all in this deck. I can't think of a single time where playing this effect actually did something to help me win the game. But it is the easiest friend to flip. I was most of the time able to flip this on either the first or the second turn. Because we're meeting such ridiculously high 6-color requirements, we need something that flips very quickly, because we need that 3 purple power to turn into other colors. All of the events we're going to be running are the events that turn Twilight into another color, so getting her to flip really isn't that hard, but it is very necessary. For purple, we're running Lady Justice as our no requirement card because we need some kind of purple no requirement, and she's really good at stalling out. Her and Twilight in play means we have almost an immediate element of magic. Some of the colors will have more than one card, like purple has Ultime Organizer. You know why, because we have to deal with those ridiculous costs on the element cards. We can also get away with this because our main is purple and very easy to flip, and if we can just very easily flip our main, then we can get this card in play, and it helps out a lot. And finally, the Element card. I actually don't mind Element of Magic. I think it's one of the better Element cards. We pay 1 less for events, which is great because that means we can play all of our events in this deck for free. And it also means that when we play an event for free, keep in mind, we can look at the top card of our deck and then choose to put it on the bottom of our deck. Since we very specifically need to get certain cards to make this deck run, any cards that give us control over what we may or may not draw are considered good. If we look at the top card of our deck and it's something good, we pay that 1 action point, we draw into it. If we look at the top card of our deck and it's something bad, we put it on bottom and just say whatever. For blue, we've got that Cloud Chaser, and again, you know why, because we absolutely have to save those action points any way we can. The main problem with Cloud Chaser is she doesn't help very much when it comes to meeting color requirements, which is why we also need to run the 2-cost, 2-power blue vanilla. Admittedly, just having a 2-power vanilla doesn't help out too much, but it's what we have, and if we can happen to get a couple of these out, then it makes it more plausible to actually play our element card. Speaking of our element card, the blue one is pretty okay too. Whenever our opponent takes some kind of action during the main phase, we can pay 1 to move this card, which is pretty good because we don't have to exhaust her, so she'll be ready for a face-off or whatever. It's kind of like Swift, but it's got its ups and downs. Its main up is that you can do it during your opponent's turn, so if you see your opponent's moving something important, like a spring forward or something, you know you either move towards it or away from it, depending on whether or not you can deal with it, or you can even use it to, like, move away. But its main down is it doesn't just straight up have Swift, and I don't understand why they wouldn't just give the element cards their normal abilities. Swift would have been amazing on this card. But alas, you will be paying the 2 action points to move this card when you want to move it on your turn to actually do something. For yellow, we have our 2-cost, 2-power vanilla, and the element card, which lets us search our deck for more critters, which actually isn't that helpful because chances are, if we don't have a bunch of critters on play already, we probably won't even get to play Fluttershy in the first place. So its effect is a little bit useless. I'd say in this deck it is probably one of the weakest, but when you're running it in normal yellow decks, it's actually pretty amazing. For white, we have Action Shot, because why would you not run Action Shot, obviously. 4 cost, but has 3 power, makes it a lot easier to hit that 6 color requirement, and gives another friend plus 4 power, which is very important. Because if we give it to one of our 2-cost, 2-power vanillas, like Blue Jay or Emerald Green, for example, then they become 6 power, which meets the color requirement of our element cards. So you normally want to save Action Shot for when you can boost up one of your vanillas or one of your lower cards so that they can meet a color requirement. The element for Generosity is the most worthless in this deck. In normal white decks, it's even really not that good, but you can use it to get 2 cards from your discard pile. Your opponent puts 1 in your hand, and you get to put 1 in play at your home for free. There was one time in one duel that I happened to be in a predicament where I was up against a Big Top, and Big Top kept getting rid of my action shots. So I ended up playing this card and getting one of the action shots for free and 1 back in my hand, and then playing the action shot from my hand, and a few shenanigans were had. But even that move didn't end up doing anything for me that would put me in a winning position. I still lost the game. But yeah, moving on. For orange, we have Full Steam, the strongest of the vanillas, because there's really not another card that you would run in this predicament. We have the 4 power, because if we happen to get the card that gives this plus 2 power, which is apples and oranges, then it goes up to 6 and can meet the color requirements for both purple and orange. So, you know, we can play either Element of Magic or the Element of Honesty. No, wait, hold on. Yes, it is Honesty. Okay, the Element of Honesty right off of this card. And Element of Honesty is one of the best. There's a lot of really good things about this card. The main thing about it, obviously, is the fact that this is a very, very Parasprite heavy meta right now. Everybody's running 3 yellow Parasprites because it's a really good card. If this card happens to get discarded by yellow Parasprite, normally with the other element cards that just kind of sucks, but with this one it gets put in play for free, and because when it comes into play you can dismiss an opponent's Troublemaker, then you can put it in play at that Troublemaker and get rid of yellow Parasprite immediately. Which actually happens to me a lot more than you would imagine. Even only running one of these, it actually happened quite a lot. And for pink, finally, Apple Brown Betty, 3 cost, 3 power, duh. Most of these are just the vanillas because the vanillas are the easiest to play, the most reliable power, so on and so forth. Element of Laughter is not helpful at all because chances are, if you reveal the top card of your deck, like the most you're going to get is like a 5. And if you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck after that, chances are there's not going to be an Apple Brown Betty in there somewhere. I mean, if there is, great, you get to draw 1 card, your opponent gets to draw 1 card, but it's really kind of useless in this deck, and is probably the most useless in its own deck as well. Letting your opponent have all of that card draw is only good if one of the cards you happen to have in your hand is a DJ Pony, Every Pony Shufflin', because then you could let your opponent draw all those cards, and you could draw all those cards, and then you could play out your hand and then play Every Pony Shufflin', and then your opponent all of a sudden doesn't have any of those cards, you just let them draw. For events, this makes Twilight orange, this one makes Twilight yellow, and this one makes Twilight pink. Twilight can't become white or blue, so here's a card that makes one of our white or blue cards even more powerful and also the other color. And this card makes one of our blue or pink cards the other color and gives them +2 power for meeting those color requirements, mainly because blue and pink were the ones I had the most trouble pulling off for some reason. Really, there's no creativity here. Like, I'm really running these just to see how many element cards I can pull off in one match. I've never pulled all 6 off in one match before, but, you know, if I keep trying. For our problem deck, Ancient Research is going to be our starting problem every single time. There's no reason not to have Ancient Research be your starting problem. Whole point of the deck, entire point of the deck, is to try to pull off as many elements as we can, so why would you not run this card? If you don't have one of the elements in your hand, but you have a lot of one color in your hand, you can look for the elements. If it's vice versa, and you have one of the elements in your hand, but you don't have the colors for it, you can use this card to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and see if one of those is there. Greeting, folks, is okay. I guess we can pay 1 to move our opponent's main character here. That never really seemed to work out for me very well, but it's a pretty easy one for us to solve. Lost in the Crystal Caverns is a pretty great way to stall out some decks if you are having trouble trying to get some of your elements off. You can just let them solve this and move some of their characters home. Plus, it only has a bonus of 2, so even if your opponent does work to get the 8 power on this and they don't mind moving a character home, they only get a bonus of 2, and that's, you know, not that great. Bonyville in a Bottle doesn't really do much this metagame, but it's pretty simple to solve for us, and it has a bonus of 2. That's kinda cool. Like, at most, all it really does is stop our opponent from playing Owl, and that's, you know, like, great and all, I guess. We run Wrapping Up Winter because, well, if we can happen to play a friend here, most of them only cost 2, so that's really not that big of a deal, then we get those 2 action points back, and that is super helpful. If our opponent gets it, then, oh well. Oh well. I guess you can just, I don't know, rip up their cards. Make them pay for their hubris. Don't actually rip up your opponent's cards. Oh my gosh, did you really watch to the end of this video to get tips on how to play the deck? Oh Jesus, I don't know. Look at your opening hand and see which of the elements you have and which ones will be the easiest to play. Purple is always the easiest one to play, always, and then it goes into the ones that you actually have changers for purple. That's Friendship, Laughter, and Honesty for those that aren't paying attention. The fun thing about this deck is every single time you get an opening hand, the game will play out completely different. There's no consistency with this deck whatsoever, and that is infuriating, but also a lot of fun. So let's say, for example, you get an element of honesty in your hand. You get an element of honesty in your hand, and you have a full steam ahead. Well, your entire strategy is going to be playing that full steam ahead, and then trying to get either another orange card or the changer so that you can play that element of honesty as quickly as possible. Don't forget that the events can stack on top of each other. That can lead to a lot of really fun plays, because if you can get 2 of the events to stack onto one of your 2 power friends, then all of a sudden you can meet a color requirement that you couldn't normally before. I guess you're gonna need an example here too. Let's say you play Spread Your Wings on Emerald Green. Now Emerald Green is 4 power and is also blue and pink. Now let's say you play and it's elementary on that same friend now that it's pink. Now it's 6 power and it's purple, pink, and blue all at the same time. Finding little tricks like that is pretty much how you're going to either or succeed or not as much succeed with this deck. Even succeeding, you're still playing an inconsistent mess, but you know, we're getting on from that. There's really only other one thing that I can tell you. Don't worry too much if you can't pull off any of the elements. You still have a chance to win. This deck wouldn't have an over half win rate if there wasn't any other way to win. Take advantage of the fact that because you're playing mostly vanillas, you don't have to worry about any color requirements if you don't have any of the elements in your hand or you don't need any of the elements. You can easily just flood the field with easy to play cards and have enough to meet any kind of problem requirements that you need. If it takes 5 power for you to solve your opponent's problem, for example, then it should cost you 5 action points to solve that problem because none of your opponents really do neat tricks or anything. You're going to be out of the loop when it comes to things like that. You're not going to be discarding your opponent's hand. You're not going to be using Rarity Truly Outrageous. You're not going to be doing a lot of things, but if you can happen to flood the field with just regular basic vanilla cards, then eventually you'll get an element in play, and then you'll have good times, I guess. I don't know. I'm about done talking about this deck. I do hope you enjoyed the finale deck of MLP month. I know it's not really that great of a competitive deck, but I think it was a pretty unique deck idea, and I'm happy that I was able to take a challenge and turn it into something that's actually kind of usable. I poke fun at the deck a lot, but that's mainly because I don't really like the idea of an inconsistent deck, and this is all of the inconsistencies, all of them, all day, every day. But moving on from that, what I mainly want to talk about is where you can go from here. Well, as a lot of you know, this is going to be the end of MLP month. This was the finale, as I said before. While there still will be MLP content on my channel, probably like some dueling videos and stuff, you have to accept that I gave you guys an entire month, and it really didn't go very much anywhere, and that's not your fault. If you're watching this video, then you are a fan, and I love you. But I cover a bunch of different card games on my channel, covering Wixis, Buddy Fight, Vanguard, Weiss in particular. And I want to start reviewing some new stuff too. So MLP is going to be a little bit slow. If you subscribed here solely for MLP, then you might want to check back every once in a while, but you probably won't be getting something for at least a couple of weeks. However, silver lining before you unsubscribe and forget about me completely is I recently found somebody that deserves a lot more views and subscribers than they get. They didn't give me any kind of permissions to do this, but I'm going to throw their name out here and also leave a link to their channel. The name of the channel is Friendship is Card Games. I just recently found out about them. In fact, I found out about them before I started recording this video while I was still getting images and stuff because they happened to have one of their videos in my related videos. So I would highly recommend you go and you check him out. I'm going to see if maybe I can convince him to do a discussion video with me or maybe an interview or something else. The fact that he has 24 subscribers is absolutely criminal. I don't know why he doesn't have more. If you enjoyed these videos and you have any respect for me at all, then I want you to go check out this guy's channel. He makes some pretty awesome stuff. He even does like his own little artworks and stuff for his videos, which is way more effort than I've ever put into a video ever. So while you're waiting for me to put out some MLP stuff, then I want you to go and watch him. He puts out MLP stuff. Although he only puts out like one video a month, we're gonna have to fix that. I'm gonna have to see if maybe I can talk him into making a few more videos. But yeah, moving away from him for a second. If you enjoyed this video, then it would really help me out if you left me a like. Those things are awesome. And also, don't forget to leave me a comment in the comment section below if you have any ideas for the deck or if you just have anything else you want to show me. And finally, as always, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news if you got here by accident. It's been fun, MLP fans. I'll see you next time.